Well, I am pleased to be joined by the best 979th overall Major League Baseball pick, Toronto Blue Jays favorite and guest of honor at the 2026 Regina Red Sox Dinner and Auction, Kevin Pillar. First question, have you been to Saskatchewan before?
Yeah, I think it's going to be my third time. I was just there about a week ago. I was in Moose Jaw, um, supporting another great cause that kind of helps out youth sports as well. And then I think I was there probably in like 2017. I was actually in Saskatchewan. So, yeah, I'm a little bit familiar with the area.
Yeah, except for the snow. You can do without that, right?
Yeah, I can do without it. I mean, I got fairly lucky when I was there 2 weeks ago. There was a little bit of snow on the ground, but I did go there in January once. So I think the snow I saw then is probably a lot different than the snow I'm going to see, in a couple weeks.
Very true. Very true. Well, you had a 13-year Major League Baseball career. Of course, as I mentioned off the hop, 32nd round pick by the Toronto Blue Jays. You played, you paid your dues. Exactly what the kids with the Regina Red Sox are going to be doing, trying to work their way towards fulfilling their dream. What do you say to these young men that you're going to get an opportunity to support by coming up to this dinner and auction?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is, everyone's journey to the major leagues and professional baseball is a little bit different. Mine was a little bit unorthodox, and I'm not the only one who was able to kind of really kind of develop a little bit later in life. But ultimately I was given an opportunity, much like these kids are given an opportunity to play collegiate summer ball. And I always try to remind people, if you got a jersey and you got a team to play against and a field to play on, you got an opportunity to be seen. So I think that's going to be my biggest message to these guys is you got a chance. You're playing ball. You got a jersey, you got an opponent. You got a field to play on. People are always watching. Go out and prove to the world who you believe you are. And a lot of it's got to come with self-belief and your ability, and a lot of it comes with the passion and desire and the love for the game. So obviously the guys getting a chance to play there have kind of checked off some of those boxes. Just continue to remind them that everyone's journey is a little bit different.
What point did you fall in love with the game of baseball, and maybe at what point did you understand that, hey, I'm pretty good at this?
I fell in love with it when I was a kid. But I never got burned out on it. I think that was kind of my superpower. I really just played baseball in the springtime growing up. And even into high school, I was playing 3 sports. So really when I got to college and I really kind of sunk my teeth into playing baseball full time, I realized I still really cared for it and I loved it. And I knew that there was work to be done and I enjoyed the work. And I think that's ultimately what kind of propelled me to, kind of really pursuing a dream of playing in the major leagues. And to answer your other question, I would say, honestly, which is so fitting, it was really summer ball. My junior year of summer ball is when I really knew that I had something. I always knew I was pretty good. I mean, I was one of the better players on my high school team. I was, one of the best players on my college team, if not one of the best players in the entire conference. I was playing Division II baseball. Felt like I should be. My talent level was, more than likely greater than the level I was playing at, but that was kind of my journey. And really, when I got to summer ball and I got kind of sized up against guys from all over the country playing at big time Division I schools, and not only did I fit in, I stood out. And that's when it really clicked to me that I could, potentially get drafted and kind of go down that route.
Before we talk a little bit about your major league career with the Toronto Blue Jays, the San Francisco Giants, Bo Sox, Colorado, moving on with that. But before we get to that, you haven't been retired from the game for a full year. And Toronto Blue Jays fans loved you as a player, right? With encompassing a lot of Canadian attributes, whether that's the modesty, whether that's the effort, whether that's the compete. But the country fell in love with you again during the World Series when you come on as a television analyst. Like, how seamless was that? Because you made it look fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a learning curve, but I think at the end of the day, being authentic to who I am and what I believe and what I see as a baseball player. And, media was something that I was always interested in, especially towards the later part of my career. I spent a lot of time around, people in a similar position to myself that were doing TV and broadcasting and writers and stuff. And I asked them questions. So I felt like, and I always, I had good mentors when I was playing, and they told me it was okay to have other interests and hobbies outside of baseball. Baseball is what you do. It's not who you are. And like, there's a lot of time throughout the day that I don't need to be really focused on the task at hand. So, whether it was times in my hotel room, just kind of watching people, after games, listening to people on the radio. But yeah, I was very fortunate that Sportsnet called me and invited me up to even dating back before I was retired. They asked me to come up and kind of do a little bit of coverage for the World Series when the Dodgers and Yankees played, and I got my feet wet. And it's been a learning curve, just like everything else. But at the end of the day, I'm talking baseball, something I'm familiar with, something I enjoy doing. Um, are there some intricate kind of tricks of the trade when you get into the media space in terms of sight line and tempo and communication? Absolutely, but I kind of remind Sportsnet sometimes too. I'm a former player. I'm always going to be a player. I don't need to be perfect at this. Let me just be my true, authentic self. And I think from the feedback that I've gotten from a lot of people from what I've been able to do, I think that's what they enjoy about it. Is it's like hearing from a guy who's right off the field, and I don't want that to change now that I'm retired and it's been about a year since I've been done playing.
Kevin Pillar, check out his podcast. Again, you have perfected that, and you are so authentic in it. Terrific job there. But in that World Series, man, the atmosphere was great. You could feel it through the television. I can't imagine living it. But being so shortly removed from the game, was there ever a time where you were looking for your cleats or your glove or something like, hey, I can help?
I think really, honestly, during the postseason is really the only time that, not that I feel like I could help, but I think that's when a little bit of jealousy and I became a little bit envious of the guys being in that position, because that's really what you work your whole life to do, is put yourself in a position to play in the postseason, then ultimately have a chance to play in the World Series, which I didn't get a chance to do. But I've come to peace with the fact that my playing career is over. And a friendly reminder of like, part of the reasons that, at least mentally, I knew that I couldn't do it anymore was, being there for opening day, which is another time you wish you were playing. But then I was there Wednesday at 12:30 against the Rockies, Kids Day, and I'm watching the guys warm up an hour before the game, and I'm thinking, man, this is just one of, they got about 157 more games. And I'm like, at that point, I was not envious of the guys on the field. And I knew after that game, I was flying home to my family and get a little bit of time to kind of decompress after the opening series and covering the game and kind of get back to normal life. So I feel like I got the best of both worlds, man. I get to, go in for about 30 plus games this year, and then I get a chance to spend a lot of time with my family, coach my kids in sports. So I'm happy with where I'm at.
Okay, we talked about you collegiately. You get drafted into the major leagues. And again, you should never, ever believe everything you read on the internet. But according to Wikipedia, with your first signing bonus, you bought an iPhone with the help of your mom. Is that true or false?
True. Very true. Yeah. I mean, I signed for $1,000, lived in the state of California, probably cleared about 500 bucks or so after that. And all I really kind of wanted at the time was a new iPhone. And that was at a time when you could actually go to the store and purchase an iPhone. You didn't have to like put it on your plan, your Verizon or AT&T plan, whatever phone service you have, Rogers. Yeah. So I really wanted just a new phone for, me heading off to, minor league. So my mom kind of loaned me the rest of the money or helped me out. So that is true.
Minor leagues, you make your way through Vancouver, you battle your way up through the AA, AAA system. You get the call to the majors. What was your welcome to the major league moment?
Really, just honestly showing up to Toronto. I hadn't had a chance to get there. I wasn't in Major League spring training that year either. So really just being in the locker room with the Major League team. I didn't really have any friends or that familiar faces. I mean, I think at that point I started probably following the Blue Jays a little bit more because I knew I was getting a little bit closer. So I knew who they were. They didn't really know who I was. And then, ultimately seeing the lineup card, seeing that I was in the lineup and I was facing primetime John Lester for the Boston Red Sox. So the Band-Aid got ripped off pretty quick. And yeah, I mean, I didn't have to wait long.
Which was more memorable? First hit, first home run, first stolen base, or is it like picking your favorite child?
No, really the first hit, because it took me 17 at bats. So it was more, honestly, it was more of a sign of relief. I think once you're able to kind of get that first hit, um, whether you settle in or not, but I think there's this sense of feeling like I can do it and I belong. And it took me 17 at bats to get my first hit. And that was kind of over the course of probably at least a week, because they gave me some run, the first couple of days, and then I was kind of in and out of the lineup. So it took probably about a week of being up there, and it was really difficult to go that long. And I remember getting that base hit like it was yesterday, and just getting to first base and feeling like, okay, I do belong. This kind of sigh of relief, and then it was still kind of an uphill battle. The first really the call up, but I felt like it gave me a lot of clarity of things that I need to work on in that off season. And luckily I had a chance the following year to get some more major league at bats, and which ultimately led me to get my opportunity in 2015 to start on opening day. And I just felt like I was super prepared for that moment.
So you played with some pretty good teams, including that 2015 team. Did you know how good you were when you got into camp and that carried through the season?
I think there's always an idea. I think, going out and adding a guy like Josh Donaldson and Russell Martin doesn't hurt, right? And it took us a while to kind of figure out our identity of a team, who we were, and really around the All-Star break, we went out and made some more additions. And then I think that's when it kind of really clicked to all of us, man, we're really good and we're about to do something special.
So that 2015 season for a lot of us is defined by the bat flip moment. What's your bat flip moment or recollection of that?
Yeah, I mean, just it's the greatest moment of my career, something I wasn't a part of, but just the entirety of the inning, the uncertainty of the rules and the chaos, and then the consecutive errors. And then I just, I remember scoring on Donaldson's kind of jam shot before the bat flip. So at least in a lot of our minds, at least in my mind, like the game was tied. I felt like there was a little bit of a sense of relief that we weren't going to lose this game on something that we hadn't seen before. But yeah, it's still the greatest moment of my baseball career, kind of just having a small part in that and living it in real time. And, the cool thing is I've been able to go back and, watch it many times after. And it takes me back to the greatest moment of my baseball career.
Was that happening in slow motion in front of your eyes, the whole Russell Martin throw to the entire emotion of it all?
No, honestly, the opposite slow motion. It was more fast motion. Like it was just chaos because there was so much uncertainty and the adrenaline was so high. The moment was so big that it was almost impossible to kind of slow things down in that moment.
From one of the best moments, Kevin Pillar, of your major league career to one of the maybe most defining, I would say, of all time, when you were beamed by that pitch when you were with the Mets, what was it, May of 2021? And then you come back 14 days later. I hope I'm not bringing up PTSD, but how in the heck did you do that?
I just had to remind myself, how long I've been playing this game. And at that point, I was probably like 7 or 8 years in the major leagues. And then you think about my journey through the minor leagues, high school, going back to when I was a little kid. And, that's probably, somewhere between 20 to 100,000 at bats in my lifetime. And it never happened. And I think that's really what I held my hat on was I played this long and it hadn't happened. Is it a realistic possibility in the game? Absolutely. It hadn't happened to this point, and I felt like the sooner I can get back in the box, I didn't have to think about it anymore. It was just kind of just hopping right back on the bike again.
There are always people, though, behind athletes. Did anyone ever say, Kevin, maybe you should double think this, and maybe if you're going to come back, but not this soon?
No, I mean, I think a lot of the Mets training staff, front office staff, coaching staff, they were on board. As soon as I got hit and I jokingly asked to be in the lineup the next day, they knew I was a little bit serious. And then when I went back to New York and had the operation, he told me in 10 days I could be back on the field, and I held my hat on that. I said, I'm going to do everything in my power to get ready. And the Mets were very kind of on board, and they allowed me to come back 10 days later.
Kevin Pillar going to be the special guest at the Regina Red Sox Dinner and Auction April the 25th. If you haven't got a ticket, you want to see this guy because all time he's one of the best and one of the most beloved Blue Jays. What should people know that haven't got a ticket yet, Kevin?
Come out, support the team, the collegiate team, and I look forward to getting up there, sharing some more stories, sharing a little bit more about my journey, and it's for a great cause.
Kevin Pillar, thank you so much for the time. Can't wait to see you, and let's hope there's no more snow up here.
Let's hope not. Appreciate you.